Okay.
Okay, Out
So
of Gum
you,
podcast episode 3.
you have to listen to this guy, right? That apparently flew a private jet from somewhere in Europe to somewhere else in Europe. Where then he got on another private jet and flew to another country in Europe. Then he gets on a private helicopter and flies to this climate control meeting where he tells you need to stop drinking coffee
I
because
saw that. I saw that.
it was like, you can go fuck yourself, dude. Oh my God. Like,
Oh,
you
jeez.
are you serious? Do you really want to end this over that?
I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, well, I get it. If you understand what their plan is, which is they're telling you what their plans are. If you understand what their plan is,
Okay,
it
okay.
makes
See, no, no,
perfect
no, no,
sense.
no. I
Coffee
actually thought,
in history, coffee was this big defining moment that turned our populace into this really productive populace, and so they
we
know
quit
that.
drinking tea and we started drinking coffee and
Yeah,
we started staying up late thinking about shit and we started saying this is bullshit and that's yes.
exactly. It's a stimulant, and they don't want us to be stimulated by natural means, by known means. They want us to be stimulated by our devices and stuff like that.
Well, no, well, my also thought was is check to see if this guy has any portfolios in coffee because that just mention on that big of stage to me could drive the hoarding of coffee
Oh,
in a sense.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean that could have been just a big nothing berry. It probably is because it was just a TED talk
Yeah.
in Davos. I'm pretty sure it was a TED talk or something like that. It's that's kind of like a whatever nothing berry. I mean, I think it's all part of the program of the whole like you're gonna eat bugs. You're gonna eat bugs. You're not gonna drink coffee. You're gonna make our bug grain coffee. You know,
Well, no, okay. I feel like they're saying this. Okay, I feel like they're saying this in
Snowpiercer.
the no, 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 in the sense that like nobody will be working.
I mean, that's the goal. Yeah.
You'll have like a 90% unemployment rate, and everybody will be absolutely dependent on those factors and like how they set these, and that's why they're like, well, if nobody's working, like, why would you have? You can.
Well, they'll eventually put these people to work doing like analysis jobs at home, basically spying on their neighbors with their devices and stuff. That's what it's going to eventually lead to. That's what socialism always kind of leads to. Eventually, is people end up policing their neighbors
No, no, it
as like a
doesn't.
part of the state.
It leads to a bunch of dead socialists. That's how it ends.
and then and then
That's what
and
it
then
leads to.
yeah, and then the authoritarians take over. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. No, but I mean that is like once it's established and everything's rolling and everything, the government itself is a communist government, right? And one of the key components of a communist government is the fact that the populist or the populism polices itself basically because they're
Okay.
they're
This
all in
is
fear
this.
of
I
prosecution.
I wish I could remember the name of this book, but it's I believe it's a French book about how the government was losing control the way they wanted. And so they just started letting all these immigrants come into the country so that they could have their vote.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody brings that up, they start calling it like racist and then colonialism or shit like that, right?
Hmm.
So anyways, they're letting all these people come to our country by the thousands down at our border.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's weird because it's like we have official ways to cross.
Hmm.
There's all these different avenues to get across, but people on the other side are making money off of helping people get across, and you don't have to deal with all that other nonsense. You can just come in illegally and meet up with other family members and whatever.
Well, yeah. And so Biden apparently,
And that's how it's
I
always
don't know.
been.
I don't know how true this is because it just broke. And news that breaks on the weekend. Typically, news that breaks on the weekend is news to be buried. But Biden went to banks and basically told them that they can't deny illegal aliens for a loan. So now, like, and regular Americans can't get a loan. It's very hard to get a loan. A lot of Americans don't own a home or anything like that, and now illegals are coming in and being told uh, that they can get approved, and Biden is backing that up by telling the banks to approve these loans. So who knows what that's going to look like? I mean, fast forward, a year or so, and you're going to have like
Like,
new
Cal, like
neighbors everywhere. Everywhere, even if you couldn't fit a neighbor, you're getting new neighbors in one way, shape, or form or
well,
another.
6 months ago, we went we uh took a trip to New Mexico just to get out, and on our way back, there's this there's a railroads, right? It's out in this Midwest. There's tons of railroads over here, and there's this uh set of tracks that's like next to a set of tracks, and it's kind of behind some trees, but you can clearly see for a mile this train is loaded with military, like tanks and radars and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's really interesting. You think that's going down south? And then, like, yesterday, somebody filmed those trains moving all of that stuff down south, and that's all like Texas's like artillery, and that's our military stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And it's like, wait a minute. And then like Florida is sending us troops, and other states,
yep.
all these like volunteers are coming down here and stuff, and it's like, dude, what the fuck are y'all doing? Y'all really gonna fucking start civil war too?
Yeah, I actually called the Florida support. I was talking about it with my wife towards like the beginning of all of this, and it was kind of before the whole uh, Biden going to the Supreme Court to allow them to cut the razor wire and whatnot. And so I told my wife because like other states were getting into support, and my wife was saying, "Oh, well, words are cheap. I mean, they're just saying like they'll give support." And I'm like, "You know what? Out of all of these, Florida's probably going to send troops and equipment." And she was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a fellow quote unquote hurricane state. So like we're used to
Because it's
sending
always been
support and dealing with getting support and all that stuff. So yeah, they're going to send support to Texas like right away." And
well,
sure
like
enough,
last
they're the first state to actually declare that they're sending stuff.
I mean, like California, it's weird how California and New York have been demonizing Texas and Florida for decades,
Hmm.
dumb, retard, southern, redneck racist, right? I mean,
Pretty much, yeah, that's
and
what I hear. That's
it's
the
like,
general consensus
and
from
it's like, wow,
from
wow.
normies, uneducated, people that are not traveled, people that have
You
only
know,
lived on the East Coast their whole life. They don't even understand what the culture is like in Texas. And it's
but I mean,
total culture shock when your typical liberal goes and visits like some town in Texas. It's complete culture shock.
well, I feel like there's more of a secession or uh, like succeeding. How would you put it?
What?
That would be the only like safe outcome. And if this scenario keeps going this direction,
Well, so
is for us to split up
well, so
and to leave, because I mean it's like every toxic marriage. Like if you don't fucking get out, one of y'all is gonna kill the other. Y'all are gonna kill each other or kill somebody else or something. And
so
it's
so tell me what you were telling me about the
oh
oil before we got
yeah
on here.
yeah.
Yeah, let's
So
get into
so
that.
they told the state to stop putting up barriers on the Rio Grande
Hmm.
because 3 people died drowning trying to get across.
Yes.
And they they pulled the barriers out of the water, but they started bringing in like shipping cargo containers
That
and
was
making walls
that was
and putting razor
Arizona, I
wire.
think. The Arizona was
Well,
the
I
cargo
think they're both. I
containers.
think they're all doing it. I think
Yeah,
it's
okay.
everybody's doing different
The
stuff, but we
shipping
basically put up
containers.
more razor wire.
Yep.
Like they told us take it down, and I think we moved it and put up more.
Yeah.
Is like the general consent of what's going on. And then all of a sudden the president orders a halt on export of like liquid natural gas, which we supply. Like I think we're one of the main suppliers of Europe, like Texas is. And then there's like such an energy crisis over there anyways, because there was like a big natural, like one of the big pipes got blown up a couple years ago,
Yeah, I
and
wonder
then
who
they're
did
trying to
that.
get they're trying, yeah, I know. And they're trying to get the I think there's one that's coming from Africa that'll feed Europe.
Hmm.
Uh I believe is US backed, and that one is supposed to be up and running pretty soon.
So what that sounds like to
Um,
me when they're making a move like that against Texas, what that sounds like to me is they're treating Texas like they would another country, like how they would give sanctions to another country or something like that. It's
we
um
have
it's
to.
it's
We're it's a
it's
Go
economic
ahead.
it's economic warfare, and so
We're a
we're.
wealthy, exactly. We're a wealthier state than most of the other
Mhm,
states. During the last like
mhm.
since 9/11, Texas and Georgia have been one of the only states to actually have growth.
And Texas is being attacked on multiple fronts. So, yes, there's a migrant crisis, but then there's also this massive influx of liberals that are fleeing decrepit blue cities and fleeing into Texas. And then the third thing is, like we just discussed, this economic pressure from the federal government. Uh, it's something that's I would say is being escalated by the federal government. It's
But it's like,
something that
why? Like, is it? I mean, like,
because it goes
is it?
against their values. This administration's core values are open borders and globalism. And when Mayorkas says that the border's safer than ever, what he's really saying is we've redefined illegal immigrant to be asylees, and asylees are a good thing. It's a good quota for them. They want they want these asylum seekers, and or that's what they want to call them. So it's a completely different train of thought, a completely different belief structure. So they think they are being virtuous when Mayorkas is in front of the committee hearings lying and committing perjury. He is doing it because he believes that it is for the greater good, and they believe that they are doing good and doing justice by basically
Yeah,
opening our borders.
every time you say his name, I think of like a really fancy well.
A whale? Have you seen what Mayorkas looks like?
Yeah, I know. But
It's like
whenever I
anybody
hear
that
his name, I think of like some sort of like well creature in Baldur's Gate. Like it's like a half mad, half
yeah. And
pissed or something. I don't know.
anybody that
Um,
defends Mayorkas, I love to just show them a video of Mayorkas and see what like a sniveling little like shithead he looks like. Like if he was in a movie, you would immediately look at this guy and be like, "Oh,
yeah, no,
this
no.
is the
I mean,
cowardly bad guy. This is the
but
coward character."
he's just
He's
doing what he was told. I mean, he's like every other dumb Nazi that had to go do shit they didn't probably want to do.
No,
They didn't really
he
have
was
much
put into
choice.
that position not because he's going to do what he's told, but because he's already on the same mission. You don't have to tell people what to do if they're on the same mission, and they are all on the same mission. It's a cult. It's a cult that will flip its views on the flip of a dime, depending on what the top donors are willing to go on. And actually, the whole thing is falling apart because of the whole like Israel Palestine thing. It was the first time that like the curtain was unveiled a little bit, and a bunch of people that are pro Palestine are BLM activists. Those are like they've been pro Palestine since way before this whole October 7th thing happened, and the Democrat Party didn't realize like how much support that had. So it's weird because the Uniparty is basically 2007 neocons, and whether they're Democrats or Republicans. And so they all fit this same agenda. So they don't have to, really report back or check in or do whatever. They're all lying in sync because they all think that they are doing this for the betterment of, I guess, repentance for this country's sins, in their weird cult. And then there's
Well,
another weird
let me
aspect
give
of the
you,
cult. Like, have you seen
like, let
CERN?
me,
Oh, sorry. You go.
Stern.
No, no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No,
We'll
no, no.
we'll
Just,
talk about that in a bit.
no, I, I really like. I don't want to understand because I feel like maybe understanding. Well, no, see, that sounds ignorant. No, I, I wish I could understand their position. Like, really, is that like that line of thought is okay with you?
The position
Right? Like,
is the position is
it
everything
seems
should
like it's
be
wrong.
inverse of what it really should be. So when they say crime is down in California, they're not saying that actual crime is down. What they're saying is they redefined crime and they stopped arresting people so that the statistics will show that crime is down. But if you walk around in California, you will clearly see that crime is not down. In fact, it is full on Mad Max in most of
It's
the
being
urban
too.
areas.
Dude, I mean, like it's got to be clear as day to people. But I still see these like random encounter interviews where they bring it up and they just deny it.
It was
Like they'll acknowledge all the robberies, all the homeless pooping,
mhm.
right, all the homeless encampments, but then they won't acknowledge why it's happening. Like they just
Remember
because they can't.
this is the progression. Remember, this is always the progression. They'll deny that it's happening, and then after a while, they won't deny that it's happening, but instead explain to you why it's a good thing. And then the next step of the progression is it is written in law that it's a good thing, and anybody that speaks against it will be incriminated. That's the natural progression of these things. I mean, we saw it during COVID. Oh shit, I said the words. Ooh.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that kind of stuff too. Um,
Yeah,
we'll
censorship is
just be
real.
indifferent. We'll just be indifferent about it and refer it to that thing that we all had to deal with for a
Yeah.
couple of years
Well,
ago.
I'm kind
Like,
of I'm over talking about it because there are plenty of other channels that are fully dedicated to that. I'll reference it every once in
yeah,
a
yeah,
while,
yeah.
but I'm more
No,
concerned
my
about
concern right now, my concern really is the fact that I, our federal government seems to be fucking with us,
our federal
and
government is not for the people.
I
They are
don't
not for the
like,
people right now.
but like they don't. It seems like they just aren't acknowledging it. It's so against their agenda that they just refuse to acknowledge it. That's really shitty.
Or work for what? Does it work for the Border Patrol to allow them to have the access they need to be able to better process people that are trying to get across the border? I don't think so, and that's why we asked for it to be removed.
But this idea that just there's no vetting and there's no proper immigration enforcement going on at the border just does not comport with reality.
One
Like,
thing
and how
that
could anybody
BLM,
support?
the one thing that BLM got right is that the state does not care about us. And it's not limited to just black people. It goes for all U.S. citizens. That's why cops are completely different than they were, when I was growing up to even before I was growing up to now. Now they are all fully militarized, and all the good cops have left. They've funneled out all the good cops. Now it's nothing but corrupt, bad cops and woke cops. So it's only going to go downhill from here. And a good preview of that is if you look at the UK, because the UK, remember, there was that girl, that autistic girl, that got arrested for not even calling the officer a lesbian. She said that she looked like her nanny, who her nanny was a lesbian, and or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the details of it, but
Well,
but
okay.
that got
I
this
think
little
you're
autistic girl
doing
arrested, and so eventually it's not going to be the state out to
a,
protect us. It's going to be the
a
state
lot
out
of
to
the police.
prosecute us at every step of the way.
I would say a lot of the police that are in my area are vets, which I think are have a different mental. I don't think they're. I think you're seeing your police.
I think you're right
And
about
like I'm seeing,
Texas.
and I
I
know
think you're right
ours,
about
and I know
Texas.
ours can be hard asses, but like
I th-
They're like
I think you're right.
God-fearing, law-abiding citizens.
Well, I think you're right
Typically,
about Texas. Maybe not Austin. Austin might be a little bit more authoritarian than you might expect, but
no, dude,
Texas
I've lived
overall,
there. I know. I I don't think it was authoritarian. Actually, the police were non-existent, and there was very little crime to the extent not like because like you're not hearing what those happening because there are police and they would respond and they would shoot and kill you.
hmm
But like it was like anything that was above that kind of thing didn't get a response.
yeah,
That was what Austin was like. It was like somebody could fire a gun in the air and people would be like, fucking call the police and somebody might show up. Road
I
rage, somebody might show up. But like it was
mhm.
they were just doing other shit. They were dealing with all this other stuff. There was always somebody famous that needed protecting or politically that needed protecting, roads closing off for God knows what things. It was always busy for the police there, and the more and more people that moved there, they were just like you didn't see them anymore.
Yep, yep.
It was rare to see police.
Well, so I would agree with you that Texas is different, and that kind of gives a lot of weight to the idea that Texas could secede because it is a completely different country than the rest of
We
the US. And I've lived all over the US. I've lived in California, I've lived in Virginia, I've lived in Florida, I've lived in Colorado. That's a good variety of places, and I've lived in Texas. And it's not everywhere, but it's a really good sample size. And I've visited a lot of places. I've been to New York,
see, I
I've been to
think we have
Philadelphia, I've been to I want to go to Boston. I haven't been to Boston, but I've traveled the East Coast a little bit. You know, I've had to drive. I've had to make that drive from DC to Florida many times, and places are different, but for the most part, Texas is the most independent place that I have seen. Everywhere else is the police department is an extension of the federal government. Even though it is state jurisdiction, the way that they conduct themselves, it seems like they are an extension of the federal government. They are willing to assist the ATF, they are willing to assist the IRS, they're willing to do all these things that the federal government would do to
we have
encroach on
something
its
called the
citizens' rights.
Texas Rangers.
What's that?
We have something called the Texas Rangers,
Yeah,
which is like our own GI Joe squad. I
100%.
mean,
They were
like
originally like a well, no, you tell me about it. Tell me what
okay,
you
so
know
check
about
this
the
out.
Texas
There was
Rangers.
this, there was this whole thing like in the panhandle of Texas, probably 500 miles north of where I am. You have that, you know, that strip, that panhandle strip in Oklahoma. Well, there was this area between there and Texas, right? That nobody apparently owned. And it for that was weird. All of that crazy Wild West shit kind of came from from that one area was because all the towns there had no real laws. There was nobody. There's no federal government backing them up or anything, and people would like hide out there, and you know that's why there was all the shootouts because there would always be people from other states coming in there and killing them and stuff, bringing them back, whatever. Uh, no, I'm just what I was gonna say was is that
So then they formed the Texas Rangers because of
between our
that. That was the
that was
origin
one of
story.
the reasons. Yeah, like I think there's some Pinkertons or somewhere in there as well, but um, no, it was mostly just the whole idea that we have our military, we have our science and medical research facilities, like all our huge universities. We have ports, right? We have international airports all over the place. And we have allies to the south, and we'd probably have a bunch of random allies within Europe and within the United States.
Mm.
And then, like, we just pull out.
Yeah, we pull out.
Just pull out. Like, I mean, this would be scary because he would be like, we need to go to a digital currency. Like, we have to just go to a digital currency. Your U.S. money will still work if you go to the U.S., but they've now required, you know, border checks and all that kind of shit to go across, right? It'd be that half. It'd be like kind of like what Europe's been going through for the last decade with their whole Brexit failure. I think it's a failure, right? Like they were hoping for something better than what they got, right?
Well, it
Like
it
I'm not
it,
100% sure on that, but
it kept getting a wrench thrown in it by bureaucrats, and then also Northern Ireland is a problem. That's something that they haven't been able to settle. So a big part of what? Do you want to get into that subject, or do you like that's
no,
a
I have no idea. Like I just feel like you know, uh, I have a completely retarded belief on the Irish, thinking that they might have been like remnants of those people that were like had civilizations 10,000 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
like Atlantis or some
and
shit?
that's why. I mean, not I'm not saying so much that, but like they just were people that survived that and like weren't they weren't living in caves when they were running into other sapiens on the planet. They weren't accustomed to that.
Okay.
I just feel like they have like uh I don't know. There's this fucking carefree but very hyper emotional this to them. And
Yeah.
being Irish, that's just, I see I see it in like family and outside of other ones. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. So in Ireland, there's, well, you know what? Let's not even get into that whole thing. But
Whatever.
yeah, no,
I'm
but hold on.
still
Let's get back to
okay.
Brexit. So Brexit, it isn't completely a failure 100%, but it didn't really achieve what they were trying to achieve. And the reason why is because bureaucrats have been backpedaling on it, and they're still kind of like involved with Europe and stuff. So it's they haven't fully exited. And the reason being, one of the reasons being is because Ireland has some sort of deal with the EU, and they didn't want to leave, so they did kind of like this hybridization with part of Ireland and part of Ireland, and then they had to change that. I watched something on this recently, and it's all pretty recent changes where they changed the borderline to the actual sea, instead of it being, Northern Ireland border. So that's like a really good case for Ireland to unite, which would be really interesting because it would happen democratically, not through war. But England itself hasn't been able to do that because it still has it has this like micro empire still, and it can't deal with it being a micro empire and also separate countries and also countries that are associated with the EU. It's a very difficult thing to juggle, and a lot of people in Ireland still want to be part of England. So they were pushing for Brexit back when Brexit, like the English loyalists were in Ireland, were pushing for Brexit hard when Brexit was happening. So now it's just kind of like a whole shit show. They've recently made an agreement and kind of cleaned it up, but it hasn't been taken in effect yet. So no one even knows how it's going to work out or anything like that. Brexit, keep in mind, something like that doesn't just happen overnight. And it takes years and years to get rid of the parasitic nature that was the globalization that is the EU that was instilled on England. And if they truly wanted to exit from the EU, it's a lengthy process. And acknowledging that is the most genuine way to look at it.
When it happened, when they first started talking about this whole thing, I was kind of supporting it mostly because I felt I'm very American, by the way,
Hmm.
that they would give it their best and they would, there would be an outcome, blah, 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 right? And I was
Hmm.
like, and then we would learn from it and do it better.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be.
That was just my hope from it. Because I felt like
I think Texas right now is like, hold my beer. and they're doing it. But I mean, everywhere in the world, unless you're living under a rock, you would know that everywhere in the world is in a state of revolt right now. France, Spain, um,
Argentina.
Argentina was like in craze. There's stuff going on in Venezuela. There's always stuff going on in Venezuela. There's stuff going
And
on.
this
There
is
was stuff going on in our own country in every major city during the entire Trump administration. I mean, this is the whole world's in disarray. Ireland, England, over the immigration stuff, right? Like
and they just
a
keep
lot
throwing
of
the
stuff
keep
is going
throwing
on.
money at those things too.
Man,
It's weird. We keep
nobody wants this. Like it's being forced on the populism, and through the media, it makes normies perceive that it is just the
maybe
right
this
and just
is
thing to do to just open your doors. But no,
maybe
it's
this
not.
is the cyber attack.
Our own government.
No, 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 no. Maybe this is just the cyber attack. Maybe this is what it is. It's basically like something. Let's say it is an entity of a person, or we'll go sci-fi and say rogue AI. But like, let's say there is some entity that let loose some sort of cyber warfare that was not like a direct attack, not shutting down a system or anything. It just infiltrated and just flipped the script on stuff.
Yeah, so that is actually dead internet theory. And so dead internet theory is real. It's actually happening right now where basically dead internet theory is in a nutshell your experience online. If you're interacting with people or perceived to be people online, 90% of those interactions are going to be with bots. So 90% of the comments that you're reading on Reddit and people arguing with each other, and you're like thinking in your head, how can people be this dumb and say this like repeat this garbage and regurgitate this stuff? Those are bots. And I'm not even saying NPCs, like people that have like just regurgitated the
I
garbage. These
understand
are
what you're saying.
actual bots on the
Yeah,
internet, and people are interacting with those bots on the
yeah,
internet,
isn't
and it is
it nice
becoming more and more
like these guys,
common. I mean, how many of you out there have gotten a random text that says, "Hey, Bobby, I'm Trina, looking for this. Oh, you're not Bobby? Sorry I bothered you. Hope it was no
yeah.
bother." And then you get like this chain of someone trying to catfish you, but it's so blatant now and it's
I
so
like it's
obviously a
actually never
bot
get in
now.
touch with any old
It's literally
friends
every day.
because
I
I'm
get
like,
a
hey,
text
this is
message.
Eric. Is this so and so?
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And then
Yeah, and
and they'll
they're getting
answer.
and these are attacks on your personal phone, let alone just being
Remember when
on
you used to tell
like
me your mother's maiden name all the time?
actually like I get all these notes from what's it called? Quora. Have you ever heard of that place?
No.
So Quora is like it's basically like Reddit but for posing questions. So because people on the internet talk in a certain way, all of these questions are posed in a very condescending tone all the time. So here's one. So why do gun owners not understand that I don't like being around guns and they should be banned for public safety? Like, and so this is obviously a bot, and if it's not a bot, it's just someone trying to troll. In my opinion, they can't truly like word a question like that. And then all the responses. There's some people seem on here that seem like real people, but if I go down and actually like read some of these responses, it's like bots. They're all nothing answers.
But see, I
And then
feel like
this seems like
if I
it.
was an AI, like an emerging AI, I would send out a bunch of feelers that
Mhm.
would be these conversations and stuff, and the back and forth of it would let me know about people faster.
Look, this was the considered to be the best response to that. I don't like seafood. I don't like its taste, its texture, and its smells makes me nauseous. Why do seafood enthusiasts not understand that I don't like being around fish, and they should be banned from preparing it for public decency? It's
Dude, I watched this is slightly off topic, on topic.
okay.
I
Get on
watched
there.
I watched these two documentaries, like back to back. Like just they were two random ones. I ended up watching on Hulu. The first one was about this guy who was going out. He was trying to clean up the oceans. Right, he was like some surfer guy that apparently came from some money, and he was like, "I want to clean up the oceans," and da da da. And so I started looking into it, and he goes on this whole journey where he starts finding out that like the majority of it's not plastic cups and crap like that they're pulling out of the ocean. It's mostly like, fishing nets and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then he goes on this whole journey about how, there's these some people that like capture a bunch of sharks and just cut off their fins for this like high hoity-toity kind of like soup that you make with shark fin, but
Mhm.
like it has no actual nutritious value to it, and you just kind of like kill these sharks, and then that is like disrupting the ecosystem of fish, right? Not
Hmm.
having these predator sharks doing some maintenance work. And then like he gets into fish farming. He's like, well, surely somebody's figured out a way to like, organize a way of like growing fish, from hatchery to, table kind of situation. Uh, and so he starts going out there and he starts finding out, no, these things suck. The fish are usually like dying off super fast, and they have to color the fish to make it look red because all of them come out kind of looking grayish and white, and they have to like spray all of them to look like salmon and stuff. They're like they'll be salmon, but it'll still be all
Yeah,
yucky or
that's
whatever.
why when you cook salmon,
So
typically when you buy salmon from the grocery store and you cook it, it typically is like really gray on the bottom and it's kind of like mushy, and then yeah, it's nice and like plump and red and stuff, and you want to present it all and like you sear it on the outside or whatnot, but like on the inside it's just gray and white, and so I totally believe that. I 100% believe that.
okay,
I
so
like salmon.
before I
I
tell
like
you the
fish.
ending,
I'm not a big seafood guy, but I do like fish in particular.
I like tuna.
Yeah,
I like sushi, but like
yep.
it's man, it's
I like
I like
grouper.
eel.
I like
I'm a big eel fan. Ugh.
swordfish. I like well, like I'm from Florida, but and I'll eat some
You with
crab
the
sometimes, but for the most part, I look at shrimp and lobsters and stuff like bugs. They're like the bugs
oh,
of the ocean because they have
I'm
exoskeletons.
sorry, I
It's
just can't. Like I like lobster. I'll eat lobster, but like I shrimp and like we have a lot of crawfish,
crawfish.
and I'm like,
Yeah, that's gross.
no, dude.
That's
That's
gross.
I,
That shit's super gross.
anyways. Before I tell you the ending of this one,
Okay, yeah.
the next day I watch. I'm looking around
Ban
and I
it,
see
like
this
that text that
documentary.
message said. Ban the seafood. No, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
joking.
no, no, no. Uh, oh, I watched this documentary about Moby, right? I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
I've always liked Moby, right? Like
Sure.
back in the day, that was some pretty awesome
Did he
crap that
get
he was coming out with.
vegan tattooed on his neck or some shit?
I have no idea, right?
I'm
So
pretty sure he
he
did.
goes through he goes through his life, right? He goes through his journey of being young, upcoming, people dying around him, drug use, the typical kind of rock star rise, whatever, right? And I get to the ending of it, right? All of a sudden, just like the one I watched yesterday, it goes from being about all of this stuff, right? About Moby, about this guy trying to clean up the ocean and wanting to figure out what he could do, and the fish farms, and then like Moby and his life, and also, and then they both end with be a vegetarian. And I was like, well, wait, what? They're like, we've just decided, through our personal journeys that eating meat of any kind is wrong, it's cruel, it's inhumane. It's like, we need to be better, be a vegetarian. I'm
Colt,
happy with my life now that I'm a vegetarian. I don't feel like I'm killing innocent things all the time to eat.
Cult like
Like,
behavior. Cult-like
I
behavior.
was like,
That is
dude,
that is part of the
what?
agenda. That is part of the agenda. They do want to get people off meat. Um, there was one thing that was really funny. I saw this Bloomberg thing, and it was like criticizing Argentina because they were like, I don't know how Malay's gonna handle that their soy is down, and it's like I don't think he wants soy there. Like I think he was purposely saying that like we poison
Well, I mean,
ourselves
soy
up
is a
here.
good export. I mean, I still think that's a useful product. It's in a ridiculous amount of stuff.
I don't think they export it.
I'm
They
not
import it.
toast.
They import soy. I don't think they export soy. I'm gonna do some research on that. Maybe I'm being dumb.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that they export
No,
soy.
you're right. Maybe I'm being dumb. I'm gonna do some more research on it. But I just saw it was just an advertisement. Like Bloomberg was actually paying advertisement on Reddit. I'll see if I can find it. I'll try to clip it on the show. If not, boohoo.
You want to look up a weird export war. Look up the sugar export war and how that ended, like maybe 10 years ago,
Okay.
with England conceding to Brazil.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
The sugar war. I'm gonna type that up.
I think we get sugar canes from other places in our country, but I don't know. That's something I'd love to grow, sugar cane.
Well, that's always been a thing. Actually, you can in the climate where you're at, you totally could grow it. It needs a lot of water,
Yeah.
but you can totally do it. In fact, you should. That would be a pretty good one to grow. I don't know. They might be invasive, like bamboo. I'm not like an invasive species of plant. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
dude, you want to scare yourself about something? God. Okay, I don't fall for a lot of whatever weird talks, like where the Mayan Aztec calendar, whatever it was. Um, Look up about the bamboo and about how apparently bamboo has these like 100-year flowering cycles. And the last time it flowered was like in the 1920s, and it didn't flower that much. And then there's been no like early growth, early flowering, or anything like that in this. And this is the first time they've really been able to study it in that kind of measurement, knowing this time frame. Uh, it's weird. I don't know that there's no like if it doesn't do this, what happens? But like it does seem of note. That's all I'm saying. Like I heard about this and I was like, huh. And there's apparently like some date coming up this year, 2024, that they're expecting stuff, and like they're concerned that there's no sign of it attempting to flower.
Interesting. Well, there's always gonna be people that doomsday people. I'm trying
It
to
wasn't a
not.
doomsday thing. It was a strictly like botanist type thing where they were like, hey, this like 110-year event, I think it was, that here, let's see if I can find it. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Send it to me too. There's this other one actually I watched yesterday. It was on Tim Pool's Culture podcast or some. I think I forget which one, but it was one of his alternate things. It wasn't his regular thing where he has like a whole panel of people and like guests and stuff. It's just him one on one with like a couple guests. And so
120 years
the discussion was with this like astrophysicist dude that was like discussing about the polar shifts and stuff. It was really interesting. I was glued to the TV for 2 hours straight. Maybe I'll do a watch party thing of it later and watch it together or something. But otherwise, I'll post on the Discord. You should watch it on your own. I think Steph would actually be like into this one because it's some interesting stuff. Lindsay and I both were like really stuck on it. It was 2 hours long, but we enjoyed every minute of it. It kind of, when it ended, we both kind of wished it was like gonna keep going because it was actually starting to get really good, and but it had gone for 2 hours. So I hope that they bring those guys back and that they don't start from the beginning. That they kind of like pick up where they left off and just do another 2 hours. That would be really freaking cool. So here we are. Okay, so we got like we're actually really good on time. What were we talking about? I mean, honestly, I would dedicate this whole episode to Texas. Let's just keep talking about the border, honestly, and like speculating. So I many years ago fantasized about not only Texas seceding, but I had this dream plan of Texas actually seceding and joining with Mexico to make Texaco. And basically, Texas National Guard would become the military, and then we would just fix the whole cartel problem. And honestly, most of the quote unquote military cartel would probably just join the military and combine and basically will uncorrupt a whole big country. And then at that point, you've got like this. Texas is already a superpower, but you'd have like a mega superpower.
And just some land to do whatever.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it has a lot of history, like a lot. Mexico and Texas has a lot of history, so it would make the most logical sense. People have laughed at me about it and all that, and people have laughed at me about the Texas seceding. And in my personal opinion, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Texas will secede. And I'm not talking about the current situation. I'm talking about always throughout Texas's entire life, even when the birth of its own state constitution, they're one of the few states to have this peaceful clause to be able to separate from the United States. They're the only state
Well,
that can.
We have to split up into 5 states, I believe.
No. We joined.
That's the main thing. Is that we were to actually secede. Part of that is that we would actually become 5.
You've got it backwards. So what happened was Texas joined the Union. The Union was like, we want you to split up into 5 states. Texas said, fuck that. And in their constitution, they put that they could secede. They never put that they were going to split into 5 states. But here's the thing. If they did secede, it would be kind of smart to be 5 states instead of to be one big honking country, because these different states could have different industries, and it might not even have to be like big. It honestly could be something like Oklahoma joining Texas, and Oklahoma just becoming North Texas, quote unquote, and then that whole panhandle portion just gets of Texas kind of gets swallowed by Oklahoma, and it becomes North Texas. And then you've got basically North Texas and South Texas. Everything like south of Dallas would be South Texas, and whatever, so on and so forth. This is all speculative, obviously, but to imagine Mexico combining with Texas, your dumb normie liberal here in the East would not understand the actual relationship that Texas has with Mexico. They think, the average normie think, that Texans hate Mexicans, and that they think that Mexicans are all, the immigrants that are coming in. But that couldn't be any further from the truth. And they call us a bunch of dumb rednecks down there and everything like that. But it's funny because it's kind of the opposite. The Mexicans down there are more the rednecks than the white people these days. I don't know. I see a lot of white people in Birkenstocks and Subarus lately, in Texas. So, so like
we went to Austin last time we were there.
Yeah.
It was like every douchebag was driving a Tacoma now, like a brand new Tacoma. It was like it's almost funny because it preempted all of that separatist vibe, but it's like, well, geez, if these terrorist guys can drive these Tacomas out in the desert and do raids for years in them, then they should be good here forever.
Yeah, the Toyota Helix. It's the legendary Helix, and over here it's just like the Tacoma. But it's funny because the military bros call it the Helix because that's what it was over there. It was just like their version of the Toyota Tacoma. But that's some fun stuff. I would love a little Toyota Tacoma, like trick it out. You know, I'm not a little truck guy. I like a bigger truck. I like something to actually pull my bike. Like I could load my bike or actually pull a trailer or do whatever. I loved my last truck. I really want to get another truck soon. But I've owned a small truck. It was a little 5-speed Nissan Frontier. I loved that little truck. That was a fun little truck. And yeah, I could squeeze my bike in the back just barely. And that was like my bike back then. My current bike, no, you couldn't fit that thing back there. It's too long. But yeah, one of these days I'll get another long bed. I like a good old fashioned farm truck. Just a regular cab, long bed, not a dually, a diesel like a 2500, but not a dually, not a
We
dually.
watched, for some reason that made me think of, if we watched, we were painting, right? And
Hmm.
so I was like, let's turn on something. And it was Over the Top with Stallone. And you know that one?
I don't think so, but go for it.
That's the arm wrestling one
Oh yeah, I do know that one. Yep, yep.
where he picks up like, and I'd never actually like sat down and watched the whole movie before. I'd always like seen those scenes where he's wrestling, whatever. But like apparently he just was too busy trucking to stay with this woman that he got pregnant or whatever. I guess it was his wife. I don't know. I guess they got divorced, or it
I
didn't seem
guess.
very clear. Yeah, but she was rich. She was from a wealthy family, and he was a truck driver. And so his son, he goes to pick up his son from military school to take him to see his mother, and they were supposed to like bond on it. And he's in one of these big old like, man, it was like a '70s style Mack truck, very bare bones, uh, hauling trailer.
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, trucks.
Trucks, trucks,
Trucks.
trucks. Yeah.
I watch the military guy on YouTube that's always talking about how the military equipment never works. They're like, yeah, that thing is awesome. It can do this and this and this. It probably won't because it never works. It's like, damn it. Just talking about like old ass
Uh,
movies and stuff.
that's funny. Good intentions, though. Good intentions.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So
I saw
I
a
was,
video of a
sorry.
guy filming some
Good.
Africans outside. I think they were, it may have been Chicago or something,
Hmm.
or New York or something. It was just like 6 or 7 of these guys that just got come over from the border, got
Hmm.
shipped over off buses, and they didn't speak any English or anything. And they're like trying to talk to this guy, and he's like, yeah, man, good luck with you guys." It just kind of drives off. It's like that's gonna work out well.
Did you see the interview? I think it was in England. This guy was interviewing like a bunch of African dudes, and they were talking about raping women and how women want or not raped, graped, graped, and assaulted or whatever. And they were talking about how these women wanted that to happen to them and how that they deserved that and all that, and that's their mentality. And then the reporter kept trying to not deflect but like change the subject to, well, don't you feel bad for the person? And then they kept saying, well, yeah, we feel bad that like we could get caught, but like, we didn't get caught, so it's all good then. And the reporter kept on trying to explain, no, like bad for the girl, like you've impacted the girl, and then like, yeah, she'll be less desirable now, but like that was, just part of what we do as, like part of the community or whatever. It was so weird. It was so like, and your typical liberal these days will argue on behalf of these people, saying like, no, these people deserve to stay here, and they'll suppress any news of
Yeah.
people getting raped or stabbed or killed or any of that. They'll suppress all
My
that
dad
stuff, and
always talks about
they'll
how
wait for the
he goes,
retaliation from some white guy, and then they'll report that. That's what they do. They'll wait for it to all escalate and blow up and blow up, and no one's reporting on this stuff. And eventually, someone's angry father goes out and lashes out, and that guy becomes the victim of the state targeting them as some sort of hate oriented individual.
I was gonna say my dad always talks about how they came up with lithium for whatever mental illnesses and stuff. They found shock treatment too inhumane, and so they came up with lithium, and you started using it as kind of a cure all, and then like they shut down all the mental asylums. So there was no places where you would house people that were like unstable. And then I guess that's when they turned prison for profit kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
It was like you basically there's no system in place to take care of all these people, and that's primarily why there's all these homeless people everywhere.
Yeah. Well, we shut
Like
down the
Austin was
yeah we shut down the mental institutions, and prison system is predatory. Like I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that the black populace has been targeted by the state. In fact, it quite literally has. I'm not denying that by any means, but the thing is that those communities are voting for this. They are voting in authoritarian communists into seats of power in their cities, and they are purposely running these cities to the ground. We're closing this up soon, and so I wanted to just make a couple closing thoughts. And I'm gonna say something. I've heard this said many times. I forget who the quote is actually from, but if the government is allowed to break the law in a crisis, they will create a crisis so that they can break the law. Do you have any thoughts on that statement?
uh change never happens until it affects the wealthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, with that in mind, what's going on with Texas specifically, and the government is actually the one, the federal government is actually the one breaking the law here, which is what's being pointed out. But I'm going on Twitter and I see both sides arguing for treason on both sides. The left are saying that Governor Abbott has committed treason for going against the federal government, and the right is saying that Biden is and Mayorkas have committed treason by some more legitimate means, which is stating that our country is under invasion and it's not under the protection of the border security, because the border security are on a catch and release policy right now, where they just catch people, release them into our country, spend our taxpayer dollars to bus them to cities around the country. Abbott and DeSantis weren't the first ones to send them to anywhere. Our federal government has already been doing that. They just had the funny thought of sending them to Harper's Ferry. So that's what everybody heard about. But our federal government is spending our tax dollars, billions of dollars, to send a bunch of people all over our country and spread them out. And we are being infiltrated. We are being invaded. There is no doubt about that. 10 years down the line, we're going to look at this as this big catastrophic event that occurred because of greed and because of corruption. And no one can deny that our government's corrupt. And so I don't get that the people that say the government is corrupt will all of a sudden become shills for the government as soon as their guy is in office. So it's like, if you actively want to lock up Donald Trump, I'm all for it. But then you have to lock up everybody else as well, because there's actual crimes being committed, which like the George.
Really justice in that thing too. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
just the fact that they make so much money off of changing things and allowing other people that they'll make money off of to do these things. Apparently, the main reason was it weed's been illegal everywhere for so long is because of liquor lobbyists pushing against it.
Well,
And it's
I
like
think you're really leaning.
they're the
I think
old
you're
deep roots.
Yeah, I think you're leaning heavy into the liquor thing. Like you mentioned it before that that you're basically an abolitionist for liquor, and I can appreciate that stance. I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you, and statistics do show
I would still,
that
I would not say that
your claim has some weight there. It really does. I
just,
don't
it's one
personally
of those
agree
things
with it
where
because
it's
I'm an ANCAP, and I don't really think that the government should have their grubby hands in anything. And so I think your average Joe Schmo should be able to have a still in their backyard as long as it's not bothering their neighbors and the community that they're in. They should be able to make grain alcohol in their bathtub. You know,
is that why all these houses have been blowing up over there lately?
is that why what? No,
It's
actually,
like little
so
houses just explode.
no, so that was a whole other thing. So there's a guy that's actually been running from the government, and he didn't die, and he actually ran away, and they're still looking for him. The government will say that whoever was there died, but the guy that they were trying to kill didn't die, and he's still running from them. Apparently, I don't know. Not a lot of people are reporting on it. I don't even know if it's true. The house did blow up. I know people confirmed in my area that they were in that neighborhood or know people that saw it or whatever. But the video, the funny thing is that there's like three different versions of the same video out there circulating on the internet. So the internet has already tampered with the tapes and everything like that. I really wouldn't trust anything from that. And it 100% is the fault of the officers on duty that night. So it's kind of crazy that that would even happen, and it kind of just circles back to my whole point that the state doesn't really care about you and your safety. Because like think about like if your neighbor was like some drug dealer or whatever, they were going to do a drug bust, and you're in the house next door and they're going to go in with guns, they don't really give a shit that you could have a sleeping kid in the house next door. They wouldn't even do the due diligence of letting you know, like, hey, by the way, we're gonna break into your neighbor's house and there might be a lot of gunfire. Like no due diligence whatsoever. And there are cases out there
There's a
where
situation like that.
officers
I was
have
in
killed
Lexington.
people in crossfire in the line of duty, killed neighbors and stuff like that by
I
quote
was
unquote
in
accident, and there was no there was no justice for that. In some cases there were, but in most cases there wasn't.
Well, I mean, nothing happened, but like we were getting ready to leave one day, and I look outside my apartment window. I'm like on the third floor or something, and I go, "Is that the sheriff with a shotgun in the parking lot?" And then I look down below me, and I see five guys in like tactical gear stacked underneath my window, and I'm like, uh. And then you see one of those like ramming tanks, the ones that like punch doors off and everything, that like they can hold like six dudes or whatever. It pulls up to the front, like pulls up onto the grass and in front of the door. And I'm like, what? And then like you start seeing like guys with rifles getting up on the like the opposite side apartments in the balconies and stuff. And like setting up behind what do you call air conditioning units and stuff. And so I call like the what is it, the information or whatever it was, 311 and the non-emergency one. And I go, hey, there seems to be some sort of police thing happening here. Do we need to leave or should we stay? And they go, hold on. And they go, where are you at? And I go, we were at 436 and they were looking at somebody in four like 17 or something, the bottom floor. And eventually like they told it. They came back on and said, "I'm sorry, we can't tell you to do either." I was like, "All right, fine."
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
That's right. And not only can they not tell you to do either because they're so tied up in liability that they can't actually give you some real, genuine human advice, they can't even disclose to you what they are going to do. So at that point, and the operator has like probably zero idea what these officers are willing to do uh, to show force. So you and your family are completely just subject to what's happening to your neighbor. And yeah, if their house happens to explode and that leads to your house exploding, the state is not going to give a fuck. And if there's no one there to hold them accountable, then, you know, then what do we
okay,
have?
okay. Actually, I disagree with that because I know of a situation where the state. Okay, apparently, a friend of mine, his father gets accused of something, um, federally.
Okay.
He did not do. Wrong place, wrong time situation, and he dies in prison before they came out with any kind of sentence or verdict. Uh, and they sued for wrongful death, and yeah, they won. They won a lot of money. So I don't think. I think that like, and especially ever since what the George Floyd one, when they gave the cops, um, what is it? The guy that they gave the family like 80 something $1 million.
Dude, the George Floyd thing was a whole big scam. They sent that dude to prison and like he was just doing what they trained to do. But I mean at the same time like I don't really side with cops, but in that particular case uh they doctored the autopsy so that they could get a whole people mass rioting, and people rioted for years. People forget about this, but people rioted for years every single summer for years. And and then later on it showed that the autopsy that he didn't die from strangulation, that he was overdosing, which if any, and here's the thing, any logical person watched the video could see that. But most people don't watch the video. And that was actually very proven during the Kyle Rittenhouse case because you had a lot of people running around being like Kyle Rittenhouse, a white supremacist, killed a bunch of black people, and it couldn't be any further from the truth. He was acting in self defense against white people that were, first of all, using the N word and saying racial slurs and stuff like that. But also, both of them were convicted pedophiles. One of them was in possession of an illegal firearm, and they were attacking him. One tried to pull the rifle away from him and he shot him. And then the other one pulled his pistol out and was going to shoot him. And Kyle was such a good enough shot that he was able to not kill him, but disarm him, which is a very noble thing to do because honestly, when you're training to shoot, you train to hit center mass. You're always trying to hit center mass because that's how you're most likely to not miss and hit someone else. To be able to hit someone's limb increases the risk of you missing and hitting someone a mile, or, half a mile down the road. So
I saw a video this morning.
he successfully put down two people, and he was hired to do security there, so he had a legitimate reason to be there. He was being threatened, and he turned himself in a very peaceful manner, which disproves a lot of things that other people say as well. And the whole court case was a total sham, but it still came out totally fine, and it was a self-defense, and everything ruled fine. And you still have leftists to this day calling him some white supremacist, crazy mass murderer. And they still think he killed, and there are people out there that still think he killed like two black people, which is insane, which is absolutely insane. People do not do their own research. In fact, the media says if you do your own research, you're more likely to find wrong information, and then that's how
Yeah,
it
you're more
leads to
likely to,
misinformation.
yes,
Yeah, exactly. And so it was funny.
conspiracies and stuff, yeah.
Jimmy Dore made a funny joke. I think it was Jimmy Dore, and he was like, "That's funny. I remember when that was just called reading."
Don't read, just do
Yeah,
what you're told.
yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I think that's a good place to stop
Have you
this
seen the movie
episode.
Brazil?
Look, Brazil. No. This is a good spot to stop. Look, so to the federal government, yeah, there's a reason why the saying goes, "Don't mess with Texas," and Texas could be America all on their own. They don't even need America to be America. Texas is more America than the rest of America could ever be. So, with that said, this was episode 3. I'm out of gum. I'm freaking sick and tired of this shit. Let's kick some ass. I'll see you in the next episode.
Trying to get across the border? I don't think so, and that's why we asked for it to be removed.
But this idea that just there's no vetting and there's no proper immigration enforcement going on at the border just does not comport with reality.
Or work for what? Does it work for the Border Patrol to allow them to have the access they need to be able to better process people that are trying to get across the border? I don't think so, and that's why we asked for it to be removed.
But this idea that just there's no vetting and there's no proper immigration enforcement going on at the border just does not comport with reality.